Hello and welcome to another helpful tech vid. In this one, this is actually a response to someone that posted a comment on the Windows Apache configuration. They wanted to know how to do virtual hosting, or I'm sorry, that comment was posted on the Linux Apache virtual host configuration. So what this video is going to cover is it's going to cover how to get virtual host going in a Windows environment with Apache installed. Now, what's virtual hosting, you ask? Virtual hosting is when Apache will answer requests based on the domain name, meaning that when you go out to a website, usually what happens is you type Google into the address bar, for example. Now, a DNS server will take the Google domain and it will convert that to an IP address, and then you go to that IP address on the default port for HTTP, which is port 80. And Google will respond, happy as can be, but it's responding. Usually, most websites will respond to the IP address being accessed at this port, at port 80. So what you need it to do is you want it to also answer based on the domain name. So when you go to, site A, it bases it based on site-A.com rather than 127.0.0. Port 80, as you can see here. When you go to site-B.com, it answers to, it doesn't matter. It doesn't look at this information. It looks at this information. Now, granted, this is a bad example because you're looking at my host file, but this is basically a way so that you can host multiple different web servers, WordPress servers, Drupal servers, whatever, on the same machine without having to change ports or do any weird configuration changes, just so that it can answer. So you don't need multiple different machines to answer multiple different domains. So the first thing that I did, and you don't have to do this, especially if your website's going to be externally accessible, but I did set this up, my host file, so that it'll answer on my local host and also my private LAN. And you can see here that my LAN IP address is indeed 192.168.10.91. Now, these two addresses are pretty much synonymous because it's going to answer port 80 on any interface that it can, basically. So that's good. That's up and running. If your server is going to be externally accessible, you need to do your DNS-A records through a site like everydns.net. It's free. You give them your public address. You set it up as an A record and the domain that it's going to answer on, so on and so forth, and it works great. But for this instance, it's all going to be internally accessible, not externally accessible. Also, if it's going to be externally accessible, you have to allow your firewall to answer on that. Check out if you're using an individual firewall, such as Windows Firewall, that's based on just that computer. Check out one of the other videos that I posted up, I think it was last week, about configuring Windows Firewall for an Apache server or whatever. I have a centralized server, so it doesn't really matter on this machine. Windows Firewall is turned off, so I'm not going to cover that, obviously. It's already in the other video, so check that out if you need to know how to do that. So this is my first step. You don't have to do this one. Step 2 would be to pick out where you are going to have your website's files. Now, I've already got, I have a little section cordoned off here for helpful tech vids. And what I did is I created folders within there, and that's the way you want to do it. You want to set up folders for, each website that you're going to be hosting. So I have site A and I have site B. Within each folder, you have the index page. You go in here and you can see that I've already edited the index page as soon as I get back here to read. This is the first site. Apache is responding to domain name requests. And if you come over and you look at site B, I have pretty much the same thing, only it reads that it's the second site. So that's step 2. Now step 3 is you want to set up your actual virtual host configuration file. And I'll show you which parts of this you need to have for sure, and which parts are variables, and those are going to be based on your actual paths and domains and so on and so forth. The name virtual host *:80, that's required. Virtual host tag, that's required. Server name, server alias, document root, custom log, and error log are required along with the end virtual host tag. That's going to be required per site, and as you can see here, I've already set mine up with site.a.com. That's variable. That's going to depend on what your domain is. Server alias, that's anything else that you want it to answer to, www.siteA.com, for example. And then your document root, this is extremely crucial because this is going to tell, the Apache where your index file is for that particular site, and all the contained files. So I've already done my C:users, buoy, video, blah, blah, blah. And you can get that information by going to your path. And then you can click up here in this address bar and it'll give you the whole thing. You can just copy and paste that right out and into this file. Custom log and error log, it's at logs/siteA.com, error log. This combined always has to be there for custom log, but not for error log. Don't ask me why. I don't know. But these two are nice for troubleshooting. If somebody ever gets, this is basically going to be your access log. Anybody that visits your website, their IP address and browser information, so on and so forth, is going to be logged there. Error log is if they get, file not found, so on and so forth. And you can do just logs / because the Apache service is already started in the C programs files x86 if you have 64-bit, Apache Software Foundation, Apache 2.2 folder. That's where the service starts at. So you can just, boom, there's your logs file or folder, and you can start it there. Now again, all that information is required for each domain. So, if you wanted to keep going, I'd just copy this whole thing, go sitec.com, site C here, site C here, site C here, so on and so forth. Now this is your, basically your whole virtual host file. This is the directives. It contains everything that Apache is going to need to locate what it needs. So now that you've got that created, I did this in Notepad++, but pretty much the same applies for Notepad. This is not going to be a text file, so I'm going to show you how to save it. I did not save it but I'm doing this so you can see. If you've never had to save with an additional extension or a different extension before, this is why. You go to Save As, and you can do that in Notepad too. And then you navigate to Program Files or Program Files x86, Apache Software Foundation, Apache 2.2. Go into your comp folder, and this is where you want to save it. Now, what you do is you click this drop down, and you won't get all these options in normal Windows Notepad, but you do get it in C or in Notepad++. Now, I could go through here and see if they have a comp file extension, but it doesn't really matter. Here, you just go to All Types, and what you do here is you encase it in quotes. You do virtual. You can name it whatever you want, really, and I'll show you why here in a second. I'm just going to name it virtualhost.conf, and then you hit Save. Now you can see it's changed here, and it's changed here. So now if you come over here to your conf file, or your folder, you'll see virtual host is here. Now, you want to come here and you want to go to properties, and you want to see it's a text document and it's got the .conf extension. Now it opens with Notepad. I've changed that myself. So it probably won't open by default with a folder because .conf is not a normal Windows file extension. This is why I have Notepad++, because that thing will open pretty much anything. I definitely recommend that you do this with Notepad++, by the way. It's so much easier. But it's a .conf file, and it has to be .conf in order for Apache to read it. So now that you've got that set up, you're almost done. Now you want to go to, where is that information? Hold on here. Now you want to go to your http.conf file, and you can check that by properties. It's a .conf. Another thing that you can always do, to view these, where is it? On Windows 7 and Windows Vista, you want to allow the menu bar, and then you go to Tools, Folder Options, View, and where is it? Oh, it's one of these guys here. Hide extensions for known file types. You want to uncheck that, and then you will start seeing your .conf files, the added extensions show up. So I want to edit this in Notepad++, and then you can come down, you go all the way to the bottom here, and enter, and you want to include your file that you just did. So you do include conf virtual host.conf. In my case, that's why I said you can name it whatever you want, because all you have to do is include that file in the Apache configuration and you're done. So now you want to save this. So now everything's saved, right? So now you come over here to Google Chrome and you go to Site A. And it says it works, but it doesn't have my added little kicker here. Why not? Let's try Site B. Same thing. It doesn't have the added text that I added. Why? Because the Apache configuration is still based on the previously opened files and folders, the previous configuration, if you will. So what you have to do is you have to restart Apache. Keep your fingers crossed. Again, I want to state this again for the record. I do not do servers with Windows very often. Usually it's just media. All my servers, email, web, everything is going to be Linux usually. But because this is requested, this is literally the second time I've ever dealt with Apache on Windows. The first one is in the previous video. So I'm hoping I got everything right. A lot of the syntax is the same as Linux, so I think everything's going to be right. But when you hit restart, you always want to cross your fingers. So go ahead and hit restart, and this should load. Okay, it is started. It should load your new configuration file from here, and it will include the virtualhost.conf, which has the directives to go to Site A and Site B. So now if you go to siteA.com, along with the DNS, this would take you there. Or, since I added my host file, it did not work. It did not work. Now, this could be a simple caching problem. So let's try Internet Explorer and see where that takes us really quick. And we come up here, wait for slow-ass Internet Explorer to load, and get rid of all of its garbage. And now you try to go to siteA.com, and it declined to show this web page. This website requires you to log in. Now this actually could be a very simple permissions issue, because I have this this folder kicked out elsewhere. It's kicked over into my helpful tech vids folder. So what I want to do is I'm going to make the necessary changes really quick. What I suggest you do, if you suspect it's a permission issue, Apache will have, of course, readable permissions within its own folder. So what I suggest you do is you actually create that a folder under here, under your Apache file for sites. Just call it sites, and go here, and I'm just going to copy my Site A and Site B out and over here.